Go ahead.
We're going to talk about another January 9th, and then which has a subtitle Play on Perspectives. And then the second one we'll talk about is Still Standing Domino, which is a play with perspective. I think the first of these plays is the weaker play, but I would still say overall it's a great play. And the similarities between the two of them, or the dissimilarities, in many ways, are Megan is narrating Danny's life in Another January 9th, and Danny is narrating Megan's life in the Still Standing Domino, an interesting device.
And I should say this is the same character that appeared in the very first play I wrote. And then she appeared in a play Features and as one of the four main characters. And then I think she might have made an appearance once elsewhere.
I did want to reference before we talk about the Still Standing Domino is that you kill off her husband, Michael. Well, I think you said around the time of Features that you had some ideas in mind for him because you thought he was an interesting character. Now you've killed him off. So will he still make any appearances, maybe in a past scene? Or
perhaps. I mean, I just, as I was doing these two plays and I decided to link them, it was about midway through Another January 9th that I had the idea that, I got to bring Megan back again. There's connections between them, these two plays. And I think it's good for the character of Megan because, as I said, I based this character on my sort of generic melding together the 4 or 5 best roles I saw the actress Megan Follows play. And so I said, I want to give this character an arc, and I feel like I sort of neglected the character for 35 plays or something. So let me bring her back here. And in the first play, we hear that we get the sense that she's rattled by something. Something has happened with Michael, but she has no idea that he ends up dying in the second play with a clot on his lung or something. But he seems to have been sick for a few days in this play, in the first play.
So in Another January 9th, which is, it could have a second subtitle that reads A Rant. You're essentially the scenes with Danny are talking about him and his job and some of the frustrations that go into his appearances in DMV, getting Jess a car, and a few other things. So talk a little bit about that because I do feel like the Megan character is interesting. She's a little more articulative to Danny. She'll agree. She's more agreeable, and because of the emotional connection they have, he seems to be a little more lax towards her as well, and any visible flaws she may have. But speak a little bit about that and some of the frustrations with Danny Wagner character and then link with yourself, because I know from reading this play that they do parallax between both of your lives.
Well, this play happened on January 9th of 2019, the main events, which was that Danny has to go to a DMV to get a bonded title for a car he wants to sell because 15 years early when he and Jessica had moved to Texas, the title had been lost in transit by the moving company, and he had been told by a DMV worker that it was no big deal. Well, it turned out to be a big deal, and so Danny has to go through that. And then he has to go get a bonded title at the insurance company. And then he has to go to a tax office to get the new title in 2.5 weeks. And he's basically treated in the exact same way that everyone makes fun of how government employees, especially DMV workers, treat people. He's treated like a piece of garbage. And throughout this, we get the Megan character basically narrating Danny, empathizing with him as he goes through this series of inane, it's an almost Kafkan-like thing. Danny is almost like Danny K, you could say, rather, instead of Joseph K.
But Megan references that fact, and how you essentially are a Joseph K, but she thinks that they're more one-dimensional characters.
Yeah.
I want you to make an aside on Kafka in a second here, but how, which I thought was a very amusing anecdote, that the best example is if you were in the Metamorphosis and the bug, you would say, "Oh shit, I'm a bug, but I still got to really write these plays."
Yeah.
And whereas the bug just sort of goes into its own sorrow and then dies.
Well, I mean, as you and I have been in contact, what now, 3 or 4 years, and so uh, anyone who's known me for a amount of time, I'll go through some issue, some medical issue. Get a runaround. I'll be treated like shit at a job. Lose a job. I'll stand up for something. I'll be attacked by trolls. Uh, whatever it might be. And I just keep going, whether it's with writing books, writing plays, writing poems, writing essays when I was doing all the essays for Cosmoetica. And you just have to keep going. And that's the secret to success in anything, especially art, if you have talent in it. And Danny's like that. And you get the sense with her constant, I wouldn't say puffery, but her constant support of Danny, that Megan feels that she's missing these things. She, I think, states it once or twice in another January 9th. But you get the sense that there is more than just a friendship. And Danny, I think, alludes to it in the second play, that Danny's always tried to keep a distance because in their quote past, which is a fictional one, there is no real life equivalent of the Megan Morrow character. Danny and Megan went out for a time, maybe a month or two or whatnot. We don't know if they were in love or whatnot, but Megan ended up dumping Danny, and she married the Michael character, who was better for her, safer for her, and probably because Megan lacks confidence in her own artistic ability. That's why she's a B film screenplay writer.
Yeah, but as you said in the next play, which they're more like two Toyotas, whereas you're like a jet,
Yeah.
and they're just happy staying on the ground, and you want to go on to better things and continually evolve. They're more sedentary creatures.
Yeah, and you can see that even in just these four plays we're talking about, the difference that if we look at Danny Wagner not just as the character in the play, but as the presumed author, just like Manny Cola is the presumed author of my New York quartet of novels, we see Danny is constantly evolving. Danny could fart and make a great scene about just having the urge to fart. Megan couldn't, though.
Well, Megan states in the next play that she was more cowardly in life and how she has some regrets, but she at the same time has the complexities of her feelings for Michael.
Mm-hmm.
But speak a little bit about the DMV scene. I just wanted to ask before you get into that. I also wanted to speak about Kafka too, but I'll just make a note of that. But the scene at DMV, did you actually, after waiting so long, did you eventually yell at them and get them to get your attention?
Yes, I mean, with the exception of maybe an addition of a word or an expletive here or there, that's basically what happened. I mean, literally, the woman shout. I waited an hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes. I get called up to the desk. And I used the exact number T522 or 21, whatever it was. I get called there, and then the guy rushes back into the room to take the thing. So my name is on the big board. She yells down the line, T521 is next, blah, blah, blah. And then Danny waits another 10, 15 minutes. They finally call the next one, and it's someone else. And Danny's like, wait a minute. Then he thinks, well, maybe he's supposed to go to that window, so he calms down. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever later, two more people are called. And Danny's like, wait a second. But he doesn't get too over the board because earlier he says that there's a cop walking back there, so he doesn't want to make too big of a scene. But he basically just blurts out, "What I want." They ask him, "What do you want?" They're like robots, and he's like, "I want basic fairness. I've waited here, an hour and a half, and now three people who came in after me, you're taking ahead of me." And they're like, and none of them apologize. Not a single worker there said, "I'm sorry, sir," or "I apologize. Come to this desk." But one guy finally came to the desk and took me, and then he had a bit of an attitude too.